we really starting? All right. Welcome to A Swift Night Out. I'm Sandy Schwab, and I'm here with Brenna Marsichek, the Director of Communications and Outreach at Madison Audubon, and we're really excited that you're here to join us to witness this amazing natural phenomena. While the swifts are in back of us here, swirling around the chimney, they're gathering their last evening snacks. I'll spend a few minutes just telling you a little bit about the swifts and these mysterious birds that share our chimneys. And I'll also tell you about a new citizen science activity that we have for you called Swift Night Out Wisconsin. So chimney swifts are aerial insectivores, and that's just a fancy term for saying that there's flying bug eaters. They fly all day overhead, gathering bugs and making our evenings in Wisconsin a lot more enjoyable. And then in the evening, at night, they rest in chimneys or other masonry structures. So chimney swifts don't perch like a lot of the birds that we normally see. They have very specialized toes that allow them to hang onto a vertical surface, and they also have 10 sharp tail spines that also support them. So they're resting in a chimney in the evening, and they cling like this to the side of the chimney. So a lot of people aren't aware of chimney swifts because they don't see them in trees, or else they think that they're bats. Chimney swifts are in serious decline, and they really need our help. There could be many reasons for that decline. The insect populations have decreased a lot in the last few decades, and there's also been a loss of habitat, both at their summer grounds here in North America and also in their wintering grounds in South America. There are other possible reasons for their decline, such as pesticides, and also the drastic climate changes that we've had. They can get caught in storms during migration, and sometimes whole flocks of thousands of swifts are wiped out. So there are several things that we can do to help them. One of them is not to use pesticides, and another thing is to protect their habitat. Now, when we think of wildlife habitat, a lot of times we'll think of a park or a forest or a prairie, but actually these chimneys, like this one behind me, is wildlife habitat. And also the sky is wildlife habitat, but we won't go into that tonight. But actually we think of an empty sky, but actually there are so many insects and spiders that exist. It's like an aerial plankton. And it's very important for the balance of nature that we keep it healthy. So A Swift Night Out was started 19 years ago, and it's a continent-wide effort to raise awareness about chimney swifts and also about Vox's swifts, which are our chimney swifts' cousins that live on the West Coast. So for A Swift Night Out, we invite people to come and witness this phenomena of the swifts going down into a chimney. So chimney swifts nest one pair to a chimney, and that could be a residential chimney. When they are done raising their young, they start gathering in flocks and preparing for their migration to South America. So you can see behind us, well, there aren't any swifts right now, but they'll be back, we hope. I guess the swifts are a little camera shy for Facebook. Well, anyhow, we'll see in a few minutes that the swifts will start gathering in groups, and then they go in circles, in counterclockwise circles, and by groups they seem to drop into the chimney. So stay tuned for that part. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Swift Night Out Wisconsin. Madison Audubon and the Wisconsin Chimney Swift Working Group that I am a member of have partnered together to make September the entire month of September a Swift Night Out Wisconsin citizen science activity. And what we're asking folks to do is to find a chimney like this, or even a residential chimney that swifts might be using as a roosting site, and to count those swifts as they go into the chimney, and provide some more details about that, and report it either on eBird or using a tracking form. And more information about that is available both on the Madison Audubon website and the Wisconsin Chimney Swift Working Group website. It's super fun, and it's easy, and you don't need any experience at all. And especially at this time of year, when you want to take a nice walk in the evening, if you just watch overhead, listen for the swifts, and then see where they're swirling around and the chimney that they're using for the night. Chimney swifts are one of many aerial insectivores. We might see other ones here tonight. Sometimes we see common nighthawks, which are not hawks at all, but aerial insectivores that are a little bit larger than swifts, and they have white wing bars, and they have a fast, erratic flight. So if we do see any here tonight, we'll be sure to point them out. Sometimes people will ask me, well, swifts are using our chimneys now, but what did they do before there were chimneys in the U.S.? And the answer to that is that before the North Europeans colonized America, swifts would use big hollow trees to nest and roost in. And then when colonization started and a lot of those big trees were cut down, they started using our chimneys. And even as early as the 1600s, there are reports of swifts using chimneys. So another question you might ask is that once we see these swifts, oh, here they're back. Once they start going into the chimney, do they go feet first or head first? And the answer of that is they do both. And you'll be able to see some flutter down into the chimney, and other ones just dive really fast. It's pretty cool. And the event starts slow. Like right now, there are some that are circling around, and hopefully you can hear them too, because their little chippering sound is one of the clues that they're around. And sometimes I can hear them chippering long before I can actually see them because they're way high up. So they'll be going into the chimney soon, and they'll be joined hopefully by many other ones. Other questions that you might ask is, let's see. Well, how many swifts are there? What types of swifts are there in North America? And there are chimney swifts, there are white-throated swifts, there are black swifts, and there are Vox's swifts. Vox's swifts they live on the west coast, and they do nest more in hollow trees, but they use big chimneys like this when they're migrating. So when swifts are born, they're very tiny. They weigh as much as 3 paper clips, and they're blind and naked, and within 30 days they start taking their first flights out of the chimney. When I first became aware of chimney swifts when I was volunteering at what is now the Dane County Humane Society Wildlife Center, and I was taking care of baby birds. And one day I came in and looked at a little plastic container, and it had these 3 really strange looking little creatures that didn't even look like baby birds. They looked like little dinosaurs. And once I realized that they weren't bats and that they were chimney swifts, I was totally captivated. And the backstory of this was that someone heard these noises in this chimney, a homeowner, and he decided that there were baby birds in there and they needed to get out, that they were trapped in there. So he went and went through his fireplace and got the birds out and thought he was doing a wonderful thing. But actually it wasn't good at all, because that's where they belong. The swifts, the nesting swifts, make a tiny nest of, it's a little half-cup nest of twigs, and they glue them together with a special saliva that is for breeding swifts. So this little twig nest that can have 250 twigs is sitting on the sidewall of the inside of the chimney, and that's the nesting structure that they have. Sometimes in summer, when we get really hard rains, the rain will loosen the nest from the side of the chimney, and then the chicks will fall into the fireplace or farther down the chimney. So that's another challenge that the swifts have. Let's see. Well, you can see that there's more of them here, and I don't think any have gone into the chimney yet.
Where can I go?
But you can see that they're getting a lot closer. Chimney swifts are about 5 to 5 1/4 inches long, but they have a really big wingspan. They have about a 12-inch wingspan. And they're sometimes called flying cigars, because with that very short body and long wingspan, they look very different than most other birds. They differ from swallows in that their flight is a flutter and glide, and you might be able to see that right here. And also the short body, and they're also very fast. So their closest relative here is the hummingbird, and which some people find interesting, but they're both capable of very acrobatic flight. So this summer, the Wisconsin Chimney Swift Working Group partnered with the DNR on a survey to see if there were chimneys in Wisconsin that were either used for nesting swifts or roosting swifts and were in need of repair. And this was important to know, because we really need to preserve these chimneys. Modern construction doesn't include chimneys, and a lot of the older buildings that have masonry chimneys, either they're being demolished or the chimneys are not being used. And we want to preserve all of the chimneys that are now being used by swifts. We got a lot of responses, and now we're going to try to work with some of those people and see if we can find some help for them to get their chimneys repaired.
Is Henry saying he's hungry?
So other questions you might have is, what can you do to help swifts? The one thing you can do is, like I said before, not to use pesticides, so that we keep all these insects in the air. Another thing is to become aware of them if they're in your neighborhood, or if you're lucky enough to have swifts in your chimney, you can just try to provide a good habitat for them. They don't carry any diseases, and they only use our chimneys in between probably May to the end of September. And if you get your chimney clean between October and April, swifts will provide a good clean surface for the swifts to make their nests.
Someone's wondering if swifts continue to use the same chimneys to roost and nest and teach their offspring to do the same.
Yes, they do. That's an awesome. Yes, the question was whether swifts use the same chimneys to roost and to nest, if they teach their offspring to do the same. And that is true. We know, because of the work of Ralph Dexter at Kent State several decades ago, that swifts they're usually monogamous, and they return to the same chimney to nest. and they're very social birds. Their offspring, when they eventually breed, will go to a chimney that's close to their nursery chimney. And the adults, although it's the two adults to a chimney, they might include a helper bird, and that bird would help bring insects down to feed the chicks. The chicks are very hungry.
Are they reliant on our buildings, or can they live in the woods in dead trees?
That's also a very good question. Are they reliant on our structures, our chimneys, or can they live in the woods and in hollow trees? There's very few hollow trees that are being used by swifts, and it's really hard to document them because swifts are really fast. But I would guess that it's only a handful in just forests that have not been the old forests that have not been forested at all, and again, it's very difficult to document these. But I know of two cases, one in northern Michigan and another one in Mississippi on the Mississippi River, where swifts were in trees. Unfortunately, one of them, even though it was protected, fell down in a storm. But it's very rare. So they are very dependent on our chimneys. They also nest in silos, in our old cement silos, and we are finding more examples of people who have started looking in their silos, and there's many of those in the Midwest, and realize that there's a tiny little half-cup nest in it, and that's what swifts need. For habitat, and all they need with a silo is an easy way to get in it, and that could be a little door up at the top, or actually at the top of the silo. Sometimes there's a little opening that can be taken off, so the swifts can use it.
Do they migrate, and where to?
Oh yes. Another good question, do they migrate? And yes, they do. What we're seeing here is swifts that are gathering up to start their migration, and they move from their northern territory, which is southern Canada, although they're threatened in Canada, which means that there is less and less of them. But Canada and the northern part of the U.S., chimney swifts their location is from the Rocky Mountains east. So they gradually move down with their food supply. So they'll be here for quite a while yet, but after a couple of frosts, there's very few insects, and then they move farther south. So they migrate to the Amazon River basin, the upper Amazon basin in South America, and that includes Peru, Chile, several other countries, but it just in that whole area of South America. And we didn't know where swifts migrated until 1944. There were a lot of Boy Scout troops and other efforts to ban them, to see where they migrated to, and that was even started in the 1930s. But in 1944, the mystery was finally solved because one of the bands was returned to the American embassy in a country in South America. So we finally solved that.
Do they fly formation like F-35s?
Do they fly in formation like F-35s? Thankfully not, yes, and they're not noisy either. Oh, that's very different. Well, let me talk a little bit about the swifts, because I've watched them for 10 years now, and when they really get active before they go into the chimney, it's fast and furious, but I have never seen two collide. They seem to know about their neighbors around them, and even going into the chimney, even though there's quite a few at one time, I've never seen a collision. So what was the other question, Bretta?
What does their exit look like?
Oh, their exit in the morning is interesting because it's almost like a popcorn popper. There's several that will come up and fly out, but it won't be a large group like it is when they go in. And some of them, I think they hit the snooze alarm and they go back in. So we thought for a long time that swifts would leave southern Wisconsin in September, but a couple of years ago we were watching a chimney in Okauchee, and that chimney had swifts in it until mid-October or even later. So that really surprised us, and that's one of the reasons why we would like Wisconsinites to do the Swift Night Out Wisconsin, so that we can see when these birds are migrating and coming through. And of course we don't know if these are the same birds every night, but we can tell if there's a lot of activity. So, all right. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna stop talking, and we're gonna watch swifts right now. But keep your questions coming, and if we see anything remarkable, or if we see any predators, we'll try to catch it on the camera. One other thing about predators is that although swifts are very fast, they do have predators, and one of them is a peregrine falcon, and another one could be a Cooper's hawk. I've seen groups of swifts like this going into the chimney, and now they're starting. But a Cooper's hawk can just fly through that flock and grab a couple swifts and be on its way. So, and I hope that doesn't happen tonight, but let's stay tuned.
Are they active during the day?
Swifts are very active during the day, but sometimes we don't even realize that they're around because they could be flying far overhead. But once they leave the chimney in the morning, they are flying all day long. They have a very high metabolism, and when they eat the insects, although they have very small bills, it opens up and they just trawl for insects, and the insects just kind of pop in. So they're doing this all day long. And one tip for watching swifts is, I hope you can hear their little chippering sound, because a lot of times I can hear the chippering before I see the swifts.
How many swifts can fit into one chimney?
That's a great question. Oh yes, the question is how many swifts can fit into a chimney. I've seen pictures of swifts lining up in these chimneys. They don't touch each other, but they're very close. They're very social birds. This chimney, I have personally seen about 2,500 birds go into this in previous years, but there are reports of like very large chimneys like this where there can be more. There can be 5,000. I haven't been lucky enough to see this, but perhaps some other people have.
Can you share where we are?
Oh, yes, I can share where we are, and I can also give you a couple of other tips where you might find swifts. We are in Madison on the west side, and this is Cherokee Heights Middle School, and it has been a swift roost for a long time. But swifts are sometimes fickle, and they don't always use the same chimneys. And it could be that a predator is hanging out and they decide to go to another chimney. But last year, they did not use this chimney at all for migration. Another chimney close by, farther up on Midvale, is Queen of Peace. It's a Catholic church and a school, and they use a school chimney. Another site that's been active is in the Cross Plains, St. Xavier's Church. And you can go on eBird and hopefully see some reports of where people have found swifts.
Do you have an estimate of how many are here
That is difficult, but an estimate of how many are here tonight. It's interesting because, and it's something that you should really experience in person, because they seem to materialize out of nowhere, and they actually do come in groups. But last night I know that there were over 1,100 swifts, so I would expect at least about that tonight. And if you do the citizen science activity, we ask you to count swifts, and you don't have to worry about it. You could estimate them. Right now, looking at this chimney, you can see that they're going down, dropping in at a rate that would be easy to count. But when things get going in a few minutes, they'll be dropping in 5s and 10s. So at that time, you just give it your best shot and go for it. The question was, do I know of a good east side location in Madison? And I don't have anything definite, but someone told me that near the Barrymore Theater, in that area, that there was a Roost. And then I've also heard that near James Madison Park there is a big chimney. So those are two possibilities, and we hope that you'll check those out and more. Also on the UW campus, Science Hall and some of the older structures have had roosting swifts in them. Isn't it? The question was, why do they circle? And this is one of the things we just don't know about swifts, but it may give them some structure, some formation. We really don't know. When swifts really start going into the chimney, the ones that are remaining seem to restructure into a circle and then drop down again. So one of the things about swifts that we just don't have an answer for right now. But they do look like a funnel when there's a large number of them. I don't know if we'll see it tonight, but they may swirl in a tight circle and go down pretty fast, but that's usually at the end. Hopefully we'll have enough light to see that. And batteries. One other interesting fact about chimney swifts is that when they migrate, they fly during the day and they rest in chimneys or other structures at night. And that is different than many of our birds that migrate at night. And that is another reason why it's important to preserve chimneys like this, because if they've had a long day of travel and they are counting on this roosting chimney that they usually go to and realize that it's no more because the building has been demolished, they have to find something in the evening, and it's another challenge that they face. So we are hoping that Swift Night Out makes people more aware of these birds, and that people realize that they need us for their habitat, but also these birds really help out by eating so many insects. They eat about a third of their weight in insects every day, and that really helps keep the balance of nature.
Do they eat mosquitoes?
The question was, do they eat mosquitoes? And yes, they do, plus more. I've heard flying spiders and beetles and bugs, and the question of the answer to what they eat now may be related to why there are fewer of them, because over the past few decades, the whole insect population has changed. It's now reduced, but it has also changed. So they may be getting a different nutrition from these bugs than they did several decades ago.
Do they roost near the very bottom of the chimney, or is there a false bottom?
The question was,
down the chimney do they go? Maybe?
oh yeah, the question was, where do they roost in this chimney? And they don't rest near the top or roost near the top, and I think that's probably because there may be predators that could perch on the edge of the chimney or go in a ways and grab one or two. They roost farther into the chimney, and I don't think it's down at the bottom, but probably in the middle. And I have talked to homeowners that have nesting chimney swifts in their chimney, and even a chimney that is like on a 2.5-story house, people will hear the little chicks making noises on the chimney part that's near the first floor, or sometimes closer to the basement. So they go down quite a ways, and it could be a question of temperature and light and just security.
So the battery is almost dead on your phone, so if you want to just share that in case it stops the feed.
All right. Brenna has informed me that the battery is almost gone on my phone. So if we unexpectedly close before the event ends, you'll know why. We're sorry about that. We've had a little share of technical difficulties tonight. But this would be a good reason for you to go out and experience this yourself in person. It's the best. How much is left, Brenna?
But it said less than 10%
Oh.
a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be all right. Oh. Had a.
It said that they seem oblivious to our presence.
Oh, yes. The question was that they seem oblivious to our presence. And that's true. They don't seem to care about what we're doing, or if there's a party going on or whatever. But I've also experienced it as a volunteer in wildlife rehab, is that chimney swifts aren't afraid of us. And it could be because they're used to living in our chimneys and sharing our habitat. They're urban birds. They can also, of course, live on farms and that, but they seem to be very comfortable with humans. Another place that you might see swifts is if you are canoeing or kayaking, and I have been lucky to be paddling on Lake Wingra in the evening and have chimney swifts come very close to our canoe. Of course, they're getting insects from the water, above the water, but they also use the water to splash on them, to bathe, and to drink. Is that a question? No, I never do. Never. My husband, I watch them during the day, like when I hear that chippering. And he says, if you ever get hit by a car, I'll know why. It's not wise to try to follow them on your bike either. Oh, I'm hoping we can record the final take. Yep, the final drop. There we go.